Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Omori. So, we're heading to the final dungeon of the game, which is not what you're going to be expecting. So,
yeah, like thinking back, this, like, we still have like 10 parts to go.
Yeah, I was about to say final dungeon.
At this point. Yeah, this is, for all intents and purposes, the final dungeon. Yes.
Well, I mean, I guess it makes sense if there's going to be like a lengthy real world segment.
That's what I mean. Like, I think it's the only sort of critique I have for Omori for this route specifically is that once you finish this part and the boss after this, the game is essentially on autopilot for like the remainder of that route.
Yeah, I think you've got like one pertinent choice to make in the real world section.
Yeah.
And that determines whether you get the good ending or the neutral ending, I suppose.
Yeah. But like in terms of like gameplay, it ends here.
Yeah. And you know, I get the feeling like when they designed this game, they did specifically want there to be a stark contrast between the real world, which is essentially a visual novel that you can walk around in occasionally. So, a Persona game. And the more traditional RPG in the dream world, which is, I don't know, conceptually Yume Nikki if it had combat. Yeah, that actually, yeah, that's what we're playing right now. Yume Nikki if
yes,
it had combat.
yes. Let's go with that.
Yume Nikki if it had combat. Like, you know, it's supposed to feel like a game when you're in the dream world and not a game when you're not in the dream world, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But I'm not sure it entirely lands, and you know, it's hard to blame the game for that because RPG Maker, it's only got so much flexibility until you get to the point of rewriting the entire code.
I don't think in this case it's an engine limitation. I think this was entirely deliberate to highlight just the stark contrast between both routes.
Well, I don't necessarily mean engine limitation so much as gameplay style limitation. You're making an RPG Maker game, and unless you're rewriting it to be a side-scrolling platformer for some reason, which has been effective.
People have done, yeah.
You know, it's going to feel like an RPG Maker game no matter what you do with it, and when you create an RPG Maker game, you are creating a very basic style of top-down exploration, you know? So there's not a whole lot that you can do to spice things up outside of basic dungeon exploration, which the real world doesn't have, and combat, which the real world has very little of.
I understand that. However, given how the story is going, and if you're going specifically for the real world ending, I can't think of any other way to, spread out the pacing a little bit better without completely demolishing the story pacing,
I want to make clear though, like the gameplay like ending after this place and it being just mainly story for the remaining part of it is not the worst thing in the world. Because I was engaged throughout the story at this point. Like I am already hook, line, sinker. And I want to see how progression unfolds. I just wish it were a little more directly engaging and not me just reading a book.
You're what's wrong with society today, John. Nobody wants to read a book.
I should burn books.
Well, I mean, it's not like you can't have a mechanically engaging narrative experience. That was something that Undertale excelled at in its pacifist route, which, for all intents and purposes, was to Undertale what the real world route is to this.
Yeah.
The thing I'm getting out of Omori's game design overall is that they kind of expect players to do the dream world first and then go back to do the real world route afterward, because by that point they're invested enough to go the more narrative, less gameplay driven route. But
you are goaded into doing what the game classifies as a Omori route, like predominantly, Because if you go back to the beginning of the game, when you wake up for the first time and you're all alone in your house, and you decide to be that dude that opens the door for your sister, and you get that.
You get the spookums.
You get the spookums. You get the jump scare without it actually being a jump scare. I actually really like how it's handled in that moment too, because like there's no sound. It's just a very disturbing image. But still, you did that because you answered the door and you let Mari in. So the next time it happens, this time it's Kel, reflecting on what happened the first time you opened the door. Maybe you don't want to open it this time, not knowing that you're locking yourself to a different route if you do.
So that makes sense logically, but as a gamer, you want to try to do it anyway because, a thing happened, I need to respond.
The other thing, though, is that because the game, like, speaking of gamer genre savviness and all, because you are playing this game and you probably at least know about games like Yuminiki and Lisa and whatnot that have a similar dream world hook, you might not, if you're going in completely blind, you might not be expecting there to be a real world route at all. And that everything going on in the dream and between the dreams is just going to be you stuck in introvert land for the rest of the game. Because,
it's called we don't use introvert land here. We call it white space.
Whatever. So, like, that is generally how this genre of RPG Maker Dream World game tends to go. You're stuck in a symbolic dreamscape, and occasionally there are in-between segments where you wake up for a little bit to kind of hammer in whatever the game's theme is, and what the shit?
Eat the sunny fruit, Omori.
Or else Kel is going to have to do it.
Yeah, but like... So, the game probably intends the real-world route in its entirety to just be a surprise, Or something that you'll realize too late that you missed out on when you beat the game and have to go back and deal with it. Wait, did you just eat the... Was that the Tree of Might?
No, that was the Tree of Sunny.
But we got status for it, so...
But doing that does give you a substantial stat boost, like across the board. Even if it is symbolically fucked.
Is that why God kicked them out of the Garden of Eden? Because Adam and Eve's stats just got a huge boost?
You took my stats!
Oh, shit.
Get out! Get out!
Wait, isn't that just the plot to Shin Megami Tensei 5, Ted?
Dude, I barely remember any of the plot to Shin Megami Tensei 5 because it makes no sense and is bad. I remember there's like one character in the game who has a personality and it's really annoying until the very end of the game where it switches on a dime for no goddamn reason.
Are you talking about the guy who wants to leave everything to God?
Yeah, that it's like SMT5 is I'm really looking forward to the re-release because SMT5 is like 80% of a good game, but the 20% it fucks up on kind of hinders. It's almost unfair to the game in a way because like it is really fun. The problem is just that like the story is so bad, especially at the end, that it kind of makes me like the game less than it maybe deserves.
It seems like they had to rush it out the door toward the end of production.
Yeah, there was a interview with the director and when they announced the new version, and he basically said, yeah, we didn't get to put everything we wanted to into the game. He pretty much straight up admits it, so I'm really looking forward to the re-release and it having basically a whole new story, because hopefully it will be better. And there's also some gameplay improvements as well that I'm
hopefully we'll be able to have a more nuanced discussion this time around, rather than everyone just whining that it's bad because they made it like Persona 5, which they didn't, and that's not why it was bad.
No, it was the story's bad because God, I don't want to turn this into the Shin Megami Tensei. Why is there a Ditto in the?
Because we're inside the whale.
This is Humphrey the whale.
Man, yeah, I know that Moby Dick's long, and I kind of spaced out by the end, but this is a little bit different than what I remember.
No, this is Monstro.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. This is Kingdom Hearts.
Well, Pinocchio before Kingdom
I was going to
Hearts,
say, I'm glad now that Monstro is just now synonymous with Kingdom Hearts and not Pinocchio.
Listen, John, if you're thinking about Monstro, what comes to your mind first? Kingdom Hearts or
Pinocchio.
Liar.
Because I actually watched Pinocchio a lot growing up.
Yeah, so did I. Come on. It's a Disney movie. They used to be good.
So here's the thing. Growing up, my parents tell me, oh, you watched Pinocchio all the time growing up. You used to sing all the songs all the time, and we have all these pictures and videos of you doing it. I don't remember ever really watching Pinocchio. Ever. Because this must have been when I was like 2 or 3 years old. So like this Pinocchio phase I supposedly had, don't remember it ever.
Well, I don't. You're not alone. I academically know that I watched all the Disney cartoon movies, but the only one that I like specifically remember watching was Aladdin. So it's like the other ones, I have no memories. Okay, so why is there a giant C4 explosive in the middle of the room attached to 3 full-size computers?
If we're going to get to the next room, we have to solve 3 puzzles. And 2 are pretty brain dead. The monitor one tripped me up.
Oh.
The first time. But this is as complicated as it gets.
Yeah, it's not very hard.
Once you understand what you're supposed to be looking for. And the cool thing about all these puzzles is that if you know the answer beforehand, you can just brute force past it. Like you can just skip the solution areas entirely.
Well, that was something we were talking about in Sweetheart's Castle, where you had to do that puzzle the long way every time, right?
Which one specifically?
I like
Password, you mean?
I like how Mari like acknowledges how fucked up it is to set up a picnic in this location. Also, what's with the Jello cake? And like I mean, it looks delicious, but that's not something you bring in a picnic. It would fall apart in the basket.
This is a weird area to have as a final dungeon, now that I'm thinking about it.
It'll become more appropriate as we continue along it.
Yeah.
Because there is a reason for everything that we do in this world, but again, we can't really discuss it until we get to like the turning point. It's really fucking frustrating, actually, because damn, I could only keep up this game for so long.
The Humphreys with the headsets, kind of like, I look at them and I'm like, Blukey, is that you?
It's that blue dog, right?
No, it's the ghost from Undertale.
I see.
Oh, that's
Never mind.
Bluey, John.
That's Bluey. Sorry, I don't watch Undertale.
Liar.
I play Undertale.
John did his playthrough blindfolded. How are you able to do the Sans fight if you are blindfolded during your playthrough, John?
Oh, I don't.
But you did it for your review.
No, I didn't.
You know what my favorite part of the Sans fight is? You can technically spare him. He murders the shit out of you if you did, and said, basically just tells you, go back and do it over. Undo your genocide run, asshole.
Well, like, my favorite little thing about that specifically is that if you fall for it, if you spare him and he does murder you and you reload, he comments on it, and all he just says is, you have a look of a face that's really pissed off. So he just laughs and says, did I get you? And then the fight resumes.
Yeah. Oh, man. I need to play Undertale again one of these days.
I was thinking about it because, like, I'm still just trying to fill the void of waiting for Chapter 3 of Deltarune to come out, but
When did Chapter 2 of Deltarune come out? It was a while ago, right? Like 2
Yeah, it was a
years
while.
ago?
2011? No, 2021, I want to say.
Oh, 3 years ago. Okay.
Yeah.
I pretty much refuse to play Deltarune until it's actually finished.
You could be waiting a long time.
Yeah, I know.
Like,
I can wait. There's plenty of
Yeah,
other
that's
games.
like saying,
If you
I refuse
insist.
to read Game of Thrones until the series is complete. Well, you might not ever read it.
Well, the difference between Deltarune and Game of Thrones is that, like, well, first of all, Game of Thrones is just the first book, so that's already finished.
You know what I mean.
But, like, there are 5 massive long novels out. You know, each one will take you, like, 20 goddamn hours of reading minimum. Also, Deltarune is, like, a fucking 4-hour game at present. So, like, you're comparing, like, the first 4 chapters of a Game of Thrones to the entire 5 novels of A Song of Ice and Fire that we have. You know? Like...
Hold on. I believe the average reading speed is 240 words per minute.
Look,
so.
I don't even care what the average reading speed is. That accounts for people who just skim. It's like, you know, you're ruining the curve.
get out of my curve.
Hold on. I'm doing some hardcore math here, guys. I'm with some rounding.
I'm already falling asleep.
Look,
Yeah,
look. If you want me, if you want a real metric for like how long it takes to read something, look at the length of the audiobook version.
Oh, damn, you're actually pretty spot on, Lewis, because you said 20 hours. Game of Thrones is just under 300,000 words, the first book. And if we round up the average reading speed to 250 words per minute, that's almost exactly 20 hours. Look at you go, man. I also don't trust audiobooks because you speak slower than you read a lot of the time.
Speak for yourself. When I read, I speak at a normal volume in my head. You know, I'm acting out the voices and the narration in my head. It's the best way to read.
Man, I wanna watch Lewis classical theater, where he. Oh shit.
Oh, you got it.
Okay.
Is that like a rare chance of happening?
Yeah, that's very rare.
Actually, the audiobook version of a Game of Thrones is 33 hours and 46 minutes.
Yeah, because people are hamming it up, I'm sure. So anyway, for the creepypasta there, can that happen anytime you look in a mirror? Or just that
Yes.
one? Okay.
Anytime you look in a mirror.
Do you know what the chance for that is?
It is very low. I don't know the exact odds, but I know it's very rare. I did not spawn it once in my playthrough.
Did you know that it could happen?
Yes.
So that's actually a question that I would ask. When do you guys, when you're playing a game like this, at what point do you start like looking up secrets and stuff on the internet?
So in the case of a game like this, and I mentioned it before, I think in a previous session, but in a game like this where I know if there's multiple routes, I will complete whatever route I have first, and depending on how long it took, I will look up the other secrets after it's done. In this case, Omori took me about 20 plus hours, 25-ish, because I did a lot of side quests along the way. And knowing that there's a second route, I wasn't going to immediately replay it because I only have so much time and there's other things to play.
Yeah.
So in that case, I'll just look up Easter eggs and things about the other route on YouTube videos. That said, I didn't look up everything because I do have intentions of playing that second route for myself. But more often than not, I will look up other things. Like after I finish the game.
Like, for me, it really just depends on how obtuse the game is. If it's too obtuse, I'll look it up right away, you know? Because sometimes it's just like, yeah, playing the game and making choices naturally, you get a more organic experience. But there are some games where it's like, how am I even supposed to know there was a choice to make in the first place? It's like, what the hell?
Yeah, there definitely are secrets in the game that you would have had no clue were there. And then when you're looking them up, it's actually really neat to find them out. Like
now, I'll look up guides for side quests and puzzles. like on my first playthrough if I really can't be bothered. There's a set of side quests, and I'm not sure if Ryan showed them off earlier because I don't remember. Where in the real world you can be a math tutor or you can be a language tutor to some of the kids in the neighborhood.
No,
a language tutor.
I don't do those.
The language tutor, I got no problem with. I like words. Math tutor, on the other hand, fuck that. Because it starts pretty innocuous, simple addition and subtraction, but then it starts getting into solve for x's and parentheses and long division. And like, oh my God, I only have so much time for this mortal coil. I'm getting the guide.
Good old edutainment.
I'm surprised there were no, because I was about to say that the watermelon mimic was actually pretty cool. I'm surprised that there was none in that room.
Well, that's a bonus area, so.
Yeah, but once I know that an RPG has mimics, and then I see the game starting to get too generous with chests, I immediately get extremely suspicious.
Well, the funny thing about the mimics in this dungeon specifically is that, yeah, obviously they attack you, but they also will heal you every once in a while as well.
Interesting.
As if it still is a treasure in some aspect, and it's also still fruit. It just has fangs.
This is probably just my Dragon Quest experience coming up because the mimics in those games are legitimately among the most dangerous in the enemies in the series. There is in Dragon Quest 6, the first major boss that you go to, in one of the rooms right before him, there's a mimic, which is legitimately more dangerous than the actual boss of that dungeon.
I think you haven't seen true horror until you've encountered a mimic in a Dark Souls game.
I've heard that they're scary too.
My go-to mimic that I always think of now is in 14 because in the deep dungeon areas, basically Palace of the Dead, Heaven on High, and Eureka Orthos, they're basically roguelike dungeon crawlers where the floor is randomized with different debuffs and that sort of thing, but one consistent thing is mimics. And the further you get into the dungeon, the more dangerous they are, because not only do they have a death trap AoE that is one shot, which is thankfully easy to avoid, they have another attack called, I think it's Infatuation, where if you don't silence it, it puts a 9-minute debuff on you, where your auto heal is disabled, you're constantly taking damage, and everything just hurts.
You know, my knee-jerk reaction when you brought up Final Fantasy XIV was to say, what, mimics? Final Fantasy XIV doesn't have dungeons, it just has monster rushes. But then I remembered, they added those roguelike things, also known as actual dungeons. They're not very good, but they're actual dungeons.
You should play enough of it to do the variant stuff. I think you'd like the variant dungeons.
I'm just surprised that Final Fantasy decided to make mimics at all, because usually they're just like, we could make a unique mimic enemy, or we could just throw some random monsters we already made for this dungeon and say they popped out of the box, and I'm like, boring.
That's a nice box.
4 out of 10. See me after class, Final Fantasy IV. I'm very disappointed in you. I expected better.